I'm getting married in 6 weeks, and today I'm working on a very exciting project, which is creating my engagement celebration dress. Although we're not having an engagement party per se, I really do want to create one more wedding dress so that I can frolic around in it and wear it to any celebratory events that might pop up in the next 6 weeks. Fear not, I will not be drafting my own pattern. I have been greatly looking forward to actually working through the Robertswood Bow Patchwork Elysia dress, and we have finally arrived at the perfect opportunity for me to delve into this pattern. Now, if you know Robertswood patterns, you will know that they are very time intensive. So to make this a little bit more interesting, I will be timing every single hour I spend on this project so we can see ultimately how long this endeavor takes me. Of course, I have some delusional ideas about how fast I can make this, so we'll see if I can keep on schedule in my brain. I think I would like to make it in a week. We'll see how that goes. Now, Robertswood usually recommend that you spend quite a long period of time on their projects. I think you can grow quite frustrated and agitated in the process if you're rushing because there are so many details. However, I'm going to kindly refuse that recommendation and speed right along and see how fast I can do this. I may live to regret this, but it's okay. Anyway, here's the plan. I'm going to be making this piece in a size 6 to 8. I'm going to be adding the midi length extension kit, and I'm also going to be doing the 3D bow edition, which I think is recommended for the sleeves, but I would like to add it to all of the bows on the dress, just like in this picture. I know that this is going to take me quite some time to draft up all of these new pattern pieces, but I'm pretty willing to do it because I think it is quite a cool look, and I'm eager to learn how it works as well. The thing about Robertswood patterns is that they are so intricately made, I don't even understand a morsel of how they work, and so every year I try and make one so that I can learn something new. So if I'm going to be making a Robertswood pattern, I think I'm just going to do all of the extension kits because I want to learn as much as possible. You feel me? One more thing. I hypothesize that the midi extension will not be quite enough length for me. In my experience, the Robertswood midi length is just about 5 to 10 centimeters too short for my taste. So in my head, I have two possible solutions. The first solution is I can make it as is, and then I can sort of assess once I get to the bottom of the dress if I want to add some rectangular strips to the bottom. The patchwork design of this dress is so intricate because the volume does not come from gathering the fabric, it comes from having these geometric shapes that slowly build the fabric out as they go down. So having these shapes and then having rectangles does sort of change the flow of the dress, in my opinion. It's not a problem, but it's not as beautiful as the Robertswood design. I guess another option is I could try and draft another row of these curved panels. I just don't think I want to do that. It would be so much work. So really my second option, and the one that I think I want to do, is I want to add a little bit of length to each of the pattern pieces, maybe about 1 centimeter, and hopefully that extra length that I add uniformly to all pattern pieces gives me the ideal length. This is a little risky because I can't make a toile, but I think it's what I want to try. In terms of fabrication, I have a bunch of secondhand white fabric from the secondhand fabric store, and I think I'm just going to freestyle cut out from all of these different fabrications. Just going to use all of my white fabric. I don't really care what it looks like, I just want to have fun with it. However, for the lower few tiers of the dress, I would like to use a stiffer cotton so that I can hopefully get a little bit of structure going in the skirt. I would really like it to be puffy. That's my dream. Okay, I think I've pitched the whole project to you, so now I get to begin, which I'm so excited for. I literally purchased this pattern months ago, and I've just been looking at it, dreaming, waiting for my moment, and the moment is here. But before I get into the project, I have to introduce the sponsor of today's video, which is Milanote. Milanote is a tool for organizing your creative projects. Recently, I've been using Milanote to help me plan out my engagement celebration dress project. As you guys might know, I often have a lot of ideas when I'm brainstorming for a project, and this dress project has been no different. So naturally, it can be a little bit of a challenge to try and organize all of my creative concepts. Using Milanote to help me organize all of my inspiration points is incredibly helpful in giving me clarity and direction with my dress design. And truly, it just helps me start my projects with confidence and vision. On my main board for this project, I was able to to curate a group of images to capture the vibe of the dress that I want to create, which helped me understand that I want to make something ethereal, floating, light, and whimsical. I also have a to-do list for the project, a video of a Cecile Bunsen runway show that has some super inspiring looks, and a subboard detailing all of my favorite shoes that I'm considering styling with both my engagement dress and potentially my wedding dress as well. I even linked an Australian fabric supplier, which is so cool because I can have every piece of information that I need in one place. Oh, here is my shoe inspiration subboard, which highlights the selection of extremely cute shoes that I'm considering purchasing. I was able to effortlessly add the links to each pair of shoes into the board, which makes it super easy to see my selection all together, which helps me to make my decision. And this next detail is such a wonderful part about Milanote. When you're ready to share your work with your colleague, your friend, your family, or your group assignment teammate to get feedback or collaborate with them, it's no hassle at all. You can collaborate in real time by sharing your board with others. Like here, for example, I asked my sister and my maid of honor Ems what her opinion was on all of my shoe selections, and she was able to see the whole board and give me her feedback, which is so convenient. It's super quick and easy to add photos from various places online using the Milanote web clipper. You can save the images and links directly to the boards, making the whole process efficient and delightful in my opinion. You can also drag and drop images right from your desktop onto the board, which makes it effortless to add things like screenshots and photos from your camera roll. Milanote has over 100 built-in templates available for every creative project. To work on this engagement celebration dress board, I used the fashion mood board template to get me started, and then I was able to customize it from there. Whether you're a fashion designer or a sewist like me, Milanote makes starting a new project easy. I've been happily using Milanote for about 6 months now, and I plan just about every facet of my life using Milanote. We've been using it to plan our wedding, organize our budget, and I use it to organize all of my sewing projects. I highly recommend that you check it out, and it's super easy to give it a go because Milanote is available for free with no time limit. You can sign up for a free Milanote account using the link in my description, and thank you so much to Milanote for sponsoring this video. Let's make a dress. Right, the pattern pieces are all cut out. It took me 52 minutes to piece them together and cut them out, just for your reference. That was all of the pattern, including the extension. One thing I love about Roberts Wood patterns is that because they are patchwork pieces and they use different fabrications, there are different prints on the patterns to signify which fabrication you could use. You don't have to use only 3 fabrications, but it's a really good reference point. I appreciate it. I just laid out all of the pattern pieces for the blouse part of the dress. That is a little bit fiddly, but everything is really beautifully labeled and there is a diagram on the instructions, so it's okay. I've got my yoke, I've got the back, and I've got the front. But before I cut this out, I wanted to do the hack where you take the button strip from being at the front and you make it on the back of the dress. So I need to identify which pattern pieces I need to adjust, and then I'll progress. There are instructions on how to do that button change, so I'm just gonna follow the instructions. Identify the pieces you need to amend. Front 1A, front 2A, front 3A. So that should be exactly the same, yes. Okay, so these are my new front pattern pieces, and they are now cut 1, not cut 1 pair, because it's going to be the center front now, not a closure. And here is the back. I cut these in half, and then I added 4 centimeters to each. And instead of being cut 1, they'll be cut 1 pair now. I don't know if this means anything to you, but that was really interesting. Well, I feel this is going to be a little bit of mental gymnastics, trying to figure out where I want each piece of fabric to go. So I'm just gonna start. I think that's what has to happen. I'm gonna spend the rest of the night cutting out these bodice pattern pieces, and I will see you guys tomorrow to start constructing the bodice. It's the next morning. So far, I've spent 2 hours and 23 minutes on this project. Last night, I cut out all of the front bodice pieces. Something that was important to me is that the bows stand out, and they weren't for me initially. A lot of Roberts Wood pieces work really well because there are contrast between the bows and the regular fabric, and the contrast will be achieved by using maybe a satin, which has a shine to it, and then something more matte. Or sometimes it will be this is opaque and this is sheer. and that gives a really strong contrast. For me, I wasn't achieving the desired amount of contrast, but then I had an idea. For Christmas last year, I got the most beautiful gift, and it was these divine bridal laces. I have 3 different kinds, and they are equally beautiful. What I decided to do was cut out my bow pattern pieces twice. Once out of a white material and once out of the lace, and I'm going to baste them together so it has this nice look. The lacework is so beautiful, and it even has a little bit of a satiny sheen to it, so I think it's going to be the perfect amount of contrast. This does make my project more time consuming, but I think that the overall effect is very beautiful. It's time to get sewing. I'm going to construct the front of the bodice first and then the back. This is how I ended up arranging my fabric, and basically what I decided to do was hand baste all of my lace pieces to the foundational fabric underneath. Now, hand basting is not essential, but it can be a fantastic technique if you have a slippy fabric. You get more control, you can really navigate if you have any pulling or slippage with the fabric, and I just find I get the best results when I use hand basting over machine basting in a more tricky sewing situation like this. Anyway, I just pieced together the whole bodice, sewing, overlocking, top stitching, the whole 9 yards, and I have to say it was very lovely and meditative. So that's the basic construction. I am going to batch sew as much as possible to help me make this slightly faster. And yeah, I'm going to piece together the front of the bodice. I'll see you when it's done. Also, the piecing I think works in rows, so I'm going to do the top row of the bodice, the middle row of the bodice, and the bottom row of the bodice, and then attach them one by one. I forgot how annoying it is to attach these curved seams. They look really cool, but it means you have to pin every single one because they really need to line up properly. That's alright. I have to say that is some very satisfying sewing. I love how the pattern pieces all line up. I ended up top stitching all of the seams down because I think that in itself is a very beautiful detail. And just for your reference, I decided to do all of the seams facing away from the bows. So it's this way and this way, this way, this way. And then the horizontal seams, I made them away from the center of the bow. So they go up here and down here. I don't know if you care about that, but I had to put some serious thought into which way the seam should face, and I think that that feels right. Constructing the front of the bodice took me 1 hour and 9 minutes. Let's see how fast I can do the back part of the bodice. At some point in this project, I turned my timer off and I just realized that it wasn't going, so there may be some time not accounted for. It's alright. My 2 back pieces are now done, and I believe the next step is attaching the front to the back at the side seam. Front, back, back. Whenever I sew, I always have a delusion that I'm just going to be unbelievably fast at what I do. And to be fair, I do consider myself to be a relatively fast sewist, but with a pattern like this, I don't think there's much room to make it a faster process, you know? It's just intricate, slow stitching. I like it, I don't mind. It's just funny. My piece now looks like this, and I think I have to do the yoke now. Now we'll make the yoke panel by joining the 3 yoke patches as shown. Okay! I'm considering doing the yoke out of just the lace and not backing it with a cotton, so that way you'll have a tiny bit of sheer material on the shoulder, and I just want to see if I can perfectly pattern match 2 yoke pieces. It might not even look effective because the lace has a little bit of stretch. Maybe I'll need to back it with some tulle. Okay, I just did that thing where you're having so much fun that you forget that you're filming a YouTube video, and now I've progressed. Oops. But basically, it's not coming up on camera very strongly, I think, but I've pattern matched the fine lace, hand basted it onto my cotton, and then I thought it could be beautiful having a little sheer moment on the shoulder. However, I'm a little bit concerned about having the stress of the dress on this lace, so I think I'm going to back it with some shimmering organza, which will give a slight shimmer to the lace, but ultimately it will just give it a little bit more strength. I'm going to hand baste this together and then I can attach my yoke. I feel like I'm at every turn choosing a step that's going to take double the amount of time than if I just sewed it regularly. Oh well. Oh, by the way, the sun is setting, so I'm probably going to finish this yoke off camera, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Alright, it's day 3. The bodice is more or less complete. Yesterday I spent 3 hours 15 on this project, bringing my total time spent on this dress to 5 hours and 48 minutes. I'm kicking off work a little bit earlier today, so hopefully I can get a big stretch of sewing done. And yeah, let's go. Wait, let me show you something cool. I know most of you guys are more interested in seeing my wedding dress, so here's a little sneak peek of what I've been working on. Basically, every morning now I'm trying to spend a period of time working on embellishing the skirt. Can you see the work? It's coming along, I think. I'm really excited because I feel like when you just hold it up, you really do only see the fabric. But when you move it, then you get the shimmer, which is exactly what I wanted. I didn't want the sequins to be visually overpowering, but instead just a source of glimmer and light reflection, so that's cool. I'm embellishing in these long strands and just doing them completely random. And hopefully, my intention is if I keep chipping away at this every single day, by the time the wedding rolls around, it will be really sparkly. But yeah, after I make this dress, every video until the wedding will be about the wedding dress, so more content is on its way. It seems like the first thing I need to do today is bind the neckline and create the button stand. Wait, I think I have nice binding. You know that meme? Wait a second! Who are you?
Wait a minute! Who are you?
Anyway. Oh dang! Yeah. I bought all these trims and ribbons and bindings from the secondhand fabric store, and then I promptly forgot about them. Oh slay, I might use that. I basically never have pre-made bindings, so I feel like this is such a treat. As you guys know, this piece is meant to have buttons at the front, but I did the hack where you can put the buttons at the back, and I'm not sure if I've done this folding situation right. But basically, I folded in my seam allowance 1 centimeter to the wrong side, and now I've folded this over 2 centimeters to the right side. And in theory, you'll sew around the collar area here, and then you'll fold it out, and then you'll have these 2 centimeter wide button plackets. I'll attach the binding to the neckline first. I just needed to figure out how far the plackets fold in so that I can bind it correctly. What I did here was a little bit confusing to me, but basically I made sure the binding was facing up and away from the seam. Then I folded over my placket and I stitched just underneath that stitch line where the binding is. Apparently that's so you don't catch the binding. I don't really understand that part, but basically I'll trim that seam allowance, then the binding will get tucked underneath and the placket will get folded into the inside of the garment, and that's what it should look like. Now I can attach the binding for realsies. The bodice is now complete. All I have to do is just do a small securing stitch at the bottom here, and then the next step is sleeves. I cut out all of the sleeve pattern pieces, and then it was time to draft my 3D sleeve layer piece. So I used tracing paper, my pacer and my ruler, and I added 5 centimeters to all of the areas that needed extending, following the Roberts Wood extension kit instructions. I added seam allowance, and then I just repeated that for the other 2 pattern pieces. Okay, my new pattern pieces are drafted. I really hope that these work because I spent quite some time making these pattern pieces. I ended up adding 5 centimeters on either edge of these pattern pieces. Roberts Wood said you could do 4 centimeters or you could keep going up depending on how voluminous you want your bow. So let's see what sort of bow this gets us. I was just playing around with the 3D sleeve and I tried on my blouse so that I could get more of a visual. And look what happened. This has never ever happened to me ever in my patchworking life. The cotton at the back literally just tore in two on both sides. I barely put it under any stress, but now I am so scared that all of that cotton that I've used is just liable for huge splittage. It felt like a fine quality when I used it, but very disheartening, only because I put so much work into this bodice and the craftsmanship is kind of really good, quite impeccable if I can say so myself. Anyway, I think I might just have to do some hodgepodge mending. It's alright, I'm not going to let it get me down. I'm just going to do a buttonhole stitch around all the places that teared, and I'm just going to lower my expectations about the strength of all my other seams. I could just blitz these seams with a zigzag stitch on my domestic, but I feel like hand stitch has a bit of charm to it, so if it's going to be visible mending, at least let's make it look endearing. I made the left sleeve and I've just sort of pinned it together, and this is the vibe. I'm not sure if I love it, but I think it's fine. I'm gonna move forward with this design. What I do really like is the sheerness here, so that this cuff sort of looks like a cool bracelet around my arm. The important thing to remember for my second sleeve is that it needs to be a reverse of this sleeve. This is the left sleeve, this is the right sleeve. Important. This is my more crispy, crunchy cotton interfacing organdy sort of like fabric. I got it from the thrift store, so I have no idea what the makeup is, but I used it to line my 3D layer bow so that it would hopefully have a lot of stiffness and volume and oomph. And as you can see here, as I'm sort of pleating it and getting the shape right, it really is holding its own, which is kind of exciting. Making the bows is a little timely and a little fiddly. I can't say it's my favorite thing in the world, but they are pretty cool. It's such an interesting shape. Basically, once you craft your 3D bow, you just use it as a regular pattern piece and you sew it together with all the other pattern pieces. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. Just piecing together all of my patchwork pieces to make my sleeve. I finished my 2 sleeves, so now they get to go into the bodice. Well, actually, before I attach the sleeves to the bodice, I'm going to finish off the arm cuff section. And Roberts Wood says to do bias tape that you fold in so it's invisible, but I thought it would be really cute to do a very, very thin cuff. I'll show you how I did it. I'm using a thin satin bias tape, it's 1 centimeter wide. And for the best finish, I'm going to actually attach it to the wrong side of the fabric, starting at the inner arm where the seam would ordinarily be. And now I'm just going to stitch along the fold line, lining that up with the raw edge of the sleeve. I find it to be helpful if I understitch the seam allowance to the bias tape. Just makes turning it over easier. And then if you were game, you could just fold that over and machine stitch it. But I really enjoy hand stitching it. I get a little bit more control and I can just make sure that everything is even and neatly tucked in. It's totally extra of me to hand stitch it, but the sleeves are on. I can't believe I just spent an entire day's work making sleeves. But they are pretty detailed sleeves. My work day today was 6 hours and 21 minutes of active work on the dress. I can't even express to you how excited I am to get onto the skirt. Somehow that feels like the home stretch, even though I know it's not. Anyway, I'm calling it a day. I'll get back into this bright and early tomorrow, and I'll see you then. Welcome to day 4. I'm feeling a little weary, but I'm ready to go. Yesterday, I spent 6 hours and 21 minutes on the project, making my grand total of time spent 11 hours and 59 minutes. And I still have some work to do. Of course, I have to add buttons and buttonholes to the back, but that is the very last thing I'm going to do. More notably, I have 6 tiers of skirt to add to my dress. And this is including 2 tiers of the extension kit that Roberts Wood supplies, if you so desire, which I do. Now, I do want to add some modifications to the skirt. I would like to do the 3D bows on all of the bow pieces, which I know is sort of a wild endeavor, but I think they look really cool and I'm interested to see what it looks like on the whole skirt. As far as I believe, each tier is constructed of 2 pattern pieces that alternate, which means that for every tier, I will have to make a new pattern piece for the 3D layer. So that's 6 new pattern pieces. In addition to that, I think I want to add more length to this dress. I have already made a Roberts Wood dress before, and this seemed to be quite a true midi length on the designer, but I ended up adding 11 centimeters to the hem in order for it to feel comfortable for my taste. So here's how my maths. That's 11 centimeters split up over 6 tiers. The top of the first tier is going to attach to the waist, so it cannot be changed. It has to be as is. Otherwise things will not align and it won't work. Every other seam line I think can be adjusted. So in my plan, I'm going to add 1 centimeter to every single seam line of the skirt. So it will be the bottom of the first tier, the top and bottom of the second, the top and bottom of the third, the top and bottom of the fourth, the top and bottom of the fifth, the top and bottom of the sixth. And that all in all is 11 centimeters. If I universally add 1 centimeter to all of the top and bottom seam lines, everything should still line up. I'm not entirely confident, but I think that's what I want to do because I really want to preserve the integrity of the bows. I don't want to slap on another tier at the bottom, which honestly looks fine, but I really want to do the proper design, just slightly elongated. This is going to be timely as well, but it's okay. I just wanted to break down what I'm going to do in case it interests you. Let's get started. Even though I feel a little overwhelmed with all of this pattern adjusting, in actuality, each tier is just consisting of 2 pattern pieces, so it's not so bad. I just really hope my idea works. Alright, I just sewed a little bit of a mock-up of these pattern pieces, and the only problem about adding just a blanket 1 centimeter seam allowance is that it does change the seam length a little bit, and I'm not really sure how to problem solve that. So, for example, because this one curves in a little bit, that means we've now lost an extra, 5 mil or 10 mil, and this one curves out, and so we've also gained some. So basically what my game plan is now is sewing a toile together of every piece that corresponds, and basically seeing how much excess fabric I have and cutting off that exact amount from the pattern piece. Because in my head, as long as the shapes are roughly the same, I think this piece is going to be relatively forgiving. I just made my pattern adjustments, so I'm going to do another toile. And in theory, as I draft each pattern piece, I'll sew it on, make sure it lines up, and then I'll just keep moving. Okay, I can do that. Here is my toile of the first 2 layers of the skirt. Everything's lining up, except I have about 1 centimeter difference here. So I added 5 mil to either end of this bottom piece here to make it slightly bigger, and I'm gonna sew it up again. After about 4 practice runs, I think I'm happy with this. Now I have to do that process 4 more times. An absolutely critical development has occurred at level 4 of the skirt. So the first 3 tiers only have 10 patches, then the 4th tier 20 patches, which means it would be really hard to adjust those patterns because I can't just sew 2 together and see if they fit. I would actually have to sew all 20 together and then see if all 20 fit on all 10. Does that even make sense? So what I decided to do was make the bottom portion of tier 3 exactly as is. And then I make the top portion of tier 4 exactly as is, no adjustments. That means I lose 2 centimeters of length, but I'm just going to add that onto the bottom of the last tier. I think that gets me out of a tricky situation. I hope I'm right. 2 hours and 18 minutes later, I have added all of that seam allowance to all of my pattern pieces. Every time I change something, I did a new mock-up. So I've done a bunch of mock-ups to make sure these pattern pieces go together. I'm still not feeling confident at all. I'm going to proceed though. There is unfortunately one more step before I can actually start on the skirt, and that is making the 3D layers for all of the bow pieces. Done. I fear if I do anything else today, my brain will explode, so I'm going to stop. All up, I spent 3 hours and 2 minutes doing all of my pattern adjustments today, and in theory, it will work. I feel like this was a boring day to watch, but thanks for hanging out with me. See ya tomorrow. Alright, it's day 5 working on this project. I've spent 15 hours and 1 minute all up. Today I want to sew fast, I want to sew accurately, and I want to be confident and not fear that one of my 18 pattern amendments is going to be incorrect. Okay. I just tried sewing the 3D layer with 1 layer of lace, and I actually really like it. I have a feeling like this level of poof is going to be perfect for being all over the skirt, because I don't want it to really stick out in a really crunchy, voluminous way like these sleeves are. I want it to sort of be a little more chill. So I might do all of the bows out of my different laces. Granted, these laces are significantly finer, so we'll see if they can even hold the structure. I'll just experiment as I go along the way. Well, because I have so many opportunities to work on the 3D bows, I'm also trying the lace backed with a light tulle, and I already feel like it's going to be so much better than just the lace. Like, the lace is good, it's just a little lackluster. This is the lace with no tulle backing, And that's the lace with the tulle backing. You know what I mean? So much nicer. The first tier is complete. This took me an hour and a half. However, I did do a little bit of trial and error with the 3D layers, so next time around it should be a bit more streamlined. So basically the construction for the rest of the skirt is the exact same, except it just gets bigger and bigger. So I'm probably just going to check in with you at the end of every single tier and tell you how long it took and how it's going. See you after tier 2. Tier 2 complete. This tier took me 1 hour and 2 minutes. I much prefer sewing the middle of the bow tier. I will greatly look forward to when I get to do this style of tier again, which is going to be tier 5. Awesome. Tier 3. Pause. 1 hour 42, third tier completed. That's a pretty good time considering, do you know what, it does take a little bit more time when you have more fabric. And also the skirt is getting considerably bigger, so of course that's taking time. It's looking good. I fear for the next 3 tiers. This one felt like a bit of a push, and the next 3 tiers all have 20 pieces in them instead of 10, so yeah. Wait, critical update. So, you guys know how I'm doing the 3D bows, right? For my first 3 tiers, I feel like they are not looking 3D. There is not much oomph to these bows. Like, yes, if you get up close, you can see that, you know, the fabric is slanting a little bit away from the base of the skirt, but it's not giving drama. So, instead of using tulle as the backing, this time for the next round of bows, I'm using tulle netting, which is much stiffer and coarser. And look, this is the bow I've been searching for my whole 3D bow making journey. The one on the sleeve was almost perfect, but because I used a cotton interfacing, it did have the structure, but it also has like a crunch and it's just a little bit like papery maybe. And hey, like the tulle is a really nice soft option. It's definitely nice, but yeah, tulle netting is where it's at. It's light, it's puffy, it's got volume that sort of has a life of its own. Highly recommend if you're doing the 3D layers and you're doing something like this, like a lace or something. Tulle netting is the base. Perfect. Also, in my many hours spent on this project, I've discovered the fastest way to add a tulle backing to the 3D layer is just cutting out a square that's bigger than your lace or whatever you're sewing it to, sewing it together, and then cutting out the tulle. Because tulle has quite a tendency to move around, and unless you want to hand baste it together, it's just probably going to misalign a little bit along the way. And I would not recommend hand basting this quantity of pieces together. It's just not going to be worth it. But hey, that was fast and effective. Love it. That's like 100 times faster. If only I knew sooner. Whoa. Tier 4 took me 3 hours and 22 minutes. I thought at the beginning that I was flying through that, but it turns out that was a big one. In good news, all of my adjusted pattern pieces are fitting together so far, which is miraculous and wonderful. This project is really not for the faint of heart, let me say that much. Oh, one more thing. I've started adding some more structured and voluminous fabrics into tier 4. So I've got some twill in there and some cotton organdy-like material. It could be interfacing, it could be organdy. I have no idea what organdy feels like, so I'm just going off what I've heard it feels like. And it's like kind of crunchy and papery. I don't know. I just wanted to let you know I'm adding some more structured fabrics here in the hope that it will really bring the dress out, because I want it to have a sort of airy and voluminous feel. Anyway, tier 5. I think my brain is melting, potentially. Hi, apologies for the time jump. I turned my camera off around the tier 5 mark and I absolutely just fully locked in. Doing tier 5 and tier 6 was a little bit grueling for me and I may have cried a few times, but we did make it to the finished product. As you can see, the dress is done. I can't wait to show it to you. But first, statistics. Tier 5 took me 1 hour and 36 minutes, and then I spent 26 minutes on miscellaneous tasks. I don't remember what that was, but I've got it written down in my notes app. Tier 6 took a whopping 4 hours and 31 minutes, and it was brutal. Let me tell you, Tier 6 is a very, very long one, and it uses so much fabric. No words. It was rough. I opted for a hook and eye closure at the back instead of buttons, and that took me 1 hour and 19 to sew all of those on and to do any finishing touches on the dress. And so that brings the total amount of time spent on the dress to 30 hours and 27 minutes, roughly, and if my math is correct. which probably isn't. Keep in mind that that is me adding every single extension possible. I added the 3D bows on the sleeves, 3D bows on every single bow piece of the skirt, buttons from front to back, the midi length extension kit, and also I manually adjusted the length of every single pattern piece. So in theory, you couldn't do a lot more to extend the time spent on this project. Overall, I'm really proud that my pattern alterations actually worked. I've been doing a lot of alterations with my wedding dress and they've all been going kind of badly, so it was nice to have a win there. I like the 3D bow as a concept and I needed to try it out of curiosity, but I think that if you don't use the right fabrication, it kind of can be a little odd at some places. Like some of my bows stick out nicely, like the sleeves, but in the skirt, because it's so voluminous, I think sometimes the bows just look like weird, misshapely puffs on the skirt. Maybe I'm being hypercritical, but it was my instinct when I saw it. I'm still really happy I did them though, and I think they're very fun and whimsical. The last thing that I would do differently if I were to make it again was to choose my fabrics a little bit more deliberately. I was just ready to experiment, and I had lots of different secondhand things that I wanted to use, but next time I would be conscious, especially of not using something too stiff in the lower portion of the skirt. I used some really stiff fabrics down there in order to create some volume, but I think that that extra volume comes at the price of a little less flow, movement, and drape in the skirt. So that's just something that I would be mindful of next time. Anyway, that was a really big one, so thank you so much for journeying with me, for experiencing all the highs and the lows, and just for hanging out. I really love this space, and I love getting to share all of this process with you, so thanks for being here. Stay tuned for more wedding dress making content, because that is all that will be coming up now until the wedding, which is exciting and scary, but mainly exciting, and I can't wait to share the rest of the process with you, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, let me show you the dress. I'll see you in the next video. Sending lots of love. Bye!
Better if you want it.